So this week we're going to be talking about check in, check out, and you'll see this little guy here with the umbrella, and that's just to signify that check in, check out is an umbrella term. So there's a lot of different interventions that can go under this category. And check in, check out refers to programs or interventions with frequent feedback, scoring of expectations, there's a goal setting piece to it, as well as sometimes a visual analysis with the goal setting with graphs. Check in, check out programs all have common features such as multiple points of contact throughout the day. A lot of times they are students who we consider frequent flyers for disruptive behavior such as blurting, just low level behaviors, but they still require a lot of redirection. Students who benefit most from check in, check out are those students who thrive off of adult interaction seeking behavior. So, of course, the blurting. And so, some of the types of check in, check out programs, there's the behavior education program from Horner and Hawken. There's check, connect, and expect. So if you click on these links, if you click on these links, you can check out those websites that are on there. There's also the Check and Connect, which is from Oregon, and it's one of the first programs of its type. And it was actually began as a dropout prevention program, which is kind of cool. And all of these outlines expected behaviors within the school. It provides some pre-corrections and provides clarity for those expectations. So some rationale for Tier 2 interventions. There's lack of resources to provide individual support for all students who need varying levels of extra support. So it's not feasible to individualize all supports, especially for those students who exhibit those low-level behaviors. It's efficient, it's group focused. So when we talk about group focused, we're not talking about a group of students that roll in together to get their check-in all at the same time. It's really just thinking more of it's a group that doesn't need as much customization. It's effective, it's research-based, and it occurs within the system. So it should already be in place in your school for it to be effectively rolling. So it's something that's available within your school at all times. Of course, we're going to talk more later on about screeners, but it's important to screen for early for risk to prevent worsening of behaviors and actually reverse some of those risk factors. These Tier 2 interventions are very powerful, easy to implement, and especially with Tier 1 in place, it's highly effective. And there's also a self-monitoring piece that you can fade into, which can be really effective for a lot of students. So the big idea here is frequent positive feedback is one of the most effective and efficient ways to prevent current behavior from escalating and prevent future problem behaviors from developing. It also shapes staff behaviors. So we think about the positive contact and feedback, outlining expectations, monitoring that progress with the student. It's very effective. So we are actually training teachers as well who interact with these students to provide more positive interactions throughout the day. So that can be very powerful. So here's kind of what, and BEP is just one of the check-in, check-out programs available. So this is kind of the cycle that you could go through. So first, the student might meet the school criteria, and that can be different for every school, whether it be screening, office discipline referrals, or teacher nominations. So here are the program phases. So the basic program, which would be, the morning check-in. So the students come in first thing in the morning. They're greeted by a familiar and friendly adult. Oftentimes we like for this person that checks in and checks out the student to be the same person, consistent. So they come in, you have a little conversation. How was your night? Have some really positive, friendly contact, and then outlining, okay, these are your goals. This is what we're working on for today. Do you remember yesterday you had a little sticky spot here? Let's try to work on that. How can we move on forward there? And then the student will take that form throughout the day and receive teacher feedback. And that could be broken up into intervals, such as blocks, or, for those younger grades, math time. And so throughout the day, the teacher is rating them on their behavior and how it aligns with, oftentimes it is the school-wide expectations that you develop in Tier 1. So that may be safe, respectful, responsible. Then at the end of the day, they will come back to that checkout person and just evaluate how their day went. Oh, looks like you had a little trouble today during math. You want to talk about it? Let's talk about that. Oh, great. You did a really great job during reading, and so forth. And they could also receive some sort of tangible reward for meeting their goal for that day. So it's highly reinforcing for them. And then they take that form home for the parents to see. And I'll talk about this in a minute, but it really, it's important for parents to really understand the purpose of this too, so it's not punitive if a student does not meet their goal, okay? So then after they've had some success, there can be more of a phasing out, and that's where the self-monitoring comes in. So to phase that out, you also put a little bit of ownership on the student, where they, alongside the teacher, will rate themselves on how they think their behavior was during those intervals. And that can be a very powerful tool for students to be more self-aware about their behavior. And of course, because this is a rolling intervention, there's also a graduation after they've had sustained success with it. So some key features, and this is taken directly from the BEP book, page 7. Some key features of especially the behavior education program is similar implementation across students. So the more individualized we make any of these check-in, check-outs to the student, the closer to Tier 3 it becomes. So there's similar implementation across students to begin with. Continuous availability and quick access. So this doesn't just start in September and end in June. This is like a rolling intervention that they can, be nominated for and then graduate from. All school staff are trained. There's an awareness in the building of what this is. So whether it be, playground duty teachers, all school personnel should know about this program and how we can positively engage students in this. It should be consistent with school-wide expectations. So that goes back to your Tier 1. A lot of schools use the safe, respectful, responsible expectations for their goals. Some students, if that have a hard time with peers, for example, under respect, you can kind of just be very specific on what that means, kind words to friends, etc. Intervention is flexible based on FBA data. So if there is a functional behavior assessment done, it would be based on that. Even functional thinking, if you know that a student is exhibiting behaviors to gain adult attention, this would be intervention consistent with that function. Data is used consistently to monitor progress and guide decision making. So if your school is using school-wide information systems, SWIS, there is a check-in, check-out add-on that can be very helpful for this as well, to look at it in a school-wide way. Strategic or targeted interventions will be nested into your multi-tiered process. So we use the word nested because check and check out should be a good fit, especially when implementing tiers 1 through 3. And we know that tier 1 is more of a preventative measure, so there would be less of a need for this if there's a good solid tier 1 system. So secondary interventions work when programs can be applied in all school locations. So even classroom, playground, cafeteria where there's a supervisor. Elevated reward for appropriate behavior. So depending on preference, adult and peer attention delivered each target period. So that's they're being rewarded verbally for their behavior by positive attention. Also, adult attention and tangible. So maybe a piece of candy or a sticker delivered at the end of the day can make it even more powerful depending on the student's preference. Linking behavior support and academic support. And this is a really big one because we know that academics and behaviors are often integrated. So a student could be really avoiding, especially I see a lot of students who avoid writing tasks. So this behavioral support should also be integrated with that academic support after we figure out whether a student is struggling in a particular academic area. And sometimes it's tied specifically to a specific or global academic deficit, such as writing. So it's important to be mindful of that. Linking school and home support. We would need to provide a little bit of training for home because we don't want it to be a punitive thing if a student comes home and hasn't met their goal. It's really meant to be more of a debriefing opportunity for parents to talk about their students' day and talk about how we can improve it for tomorrow. And the program is organized to become a self-management system. So like I talked about earlier, and it helps for them making positive choices and allows them to take a little bit more ownership over their behaviors. And down bottom, it's an efficient program and it's tied to the school structure. Why do check and check out programs work? Well, it's an improved structure where prompts are provided throughout the day for correct behavior, system for linking students with at least one positive adult. It's kind of a mentorship program. Students choose to participate. So this is on a voluntary basis. Otherwise, it is not going to work because they're not going to be reinforced by this at all. I've seen a lot of older students doing these things on their iPads because, sometimes there's a stigma, especially for older students, attached to carrying a chart around with them. A student is set up for success. So the first contact each morning is positive with that adult, and blowout days are preempted. So say a student had a rough time on the bus. You can kind of problem solve and debrief with them before they go into their classroom in the morning. And it's an opportunity for problem solving. The first contact each class period is positive. So there's the intervals to review expectations with each teacher. And it increases in contingent feedback. So feedback occurs more often, it's tied to student behavior, and inappropriate is less likely to be ignored or rewarded on these systems. So entry, there's different ways for different schools to enter a check-in, check-out like program. Teams might have a student enter because of multiple office discipline referrals. A teacher might recommend this, or a parent might recommend it. Some of the screening data might have some red flags where you might want to consider a check-in, check-out program, or existing data such as, nurse visits or attendance data might be helpful with that. So, are you really ready? So, some things to think about. So, are Tier 1 practices in place? Are expectations identified, taught, and acknowledged? Is there a clear continuum on consequences that's understood by students? Are they clear, predictable, and consistent? Do you have administrative support? So this is very important because it makes it a priority in the school when you have administrative support backing you on this. Is there a commitment from staff to implement check and check out? And is this one of your top 3 priorities for this school year? So that kind of goes back to the administrative support, where we're looking at, what are the big priorities in the school? And if this is a priority, then you'll have a lot more success with it. So that's all I have for you today. But as always, feel free to email me with questions or post some questions on the question thread in Blackboard. We'll have some discussions in Blackboard where you feel free to ask questions, and have a great week. Thank you.